Thank you, Dean. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I even get started, I first just want us all just take a minute and just realize where we're at right now. I remember in 2008, 2009, in my father's garage, I had a simple idea, but I wasn't in California. I wasn't in Boston. I wasn't in New York. I was in Northwest Ohio, Toledo. And that was in 2008, 2009. And look where we're at today, at a startup event in Toledo, Ohio, in the Midwest today. Through countless travels, always on the plane in the big cities, in the newspapers, you always read about the coastal cities, what Silicon Valley is doing, what the venture capitalists are doing. But just pause and take in the moment that we have innovators, not just myself, but many others in this room tonight in Northwest Ohio. And to me, it takes individuals like a Gene Powell to be able to start an event like this and to be able to keep it going. So before I even get started, I want to give Gene Powell an applause. This is a major milestone, Northwest Ohio and so forth. Second, in my presentation, please feel free to ask questions. This is open dialogue. This is not me reading on the script, hi, my name is Alex, this is what I've accomplished. Ask questions. This is a learning environment, not just for you, but for myself as well too. So with that being said, I'm just going to go into a brief background of how I got started to where I am today. But I hope that everyone can walk away with what really drives them and how can you truly define success? That's still a question that I consistently ask myself. What is it? And I'm perfectly fine that I don't know that at this point in time. So with that being said, I went to Toledo School for the Arts. At school right there. I was a ballet contemporary modern dancer. Started ballet when I was in 7th grade. Moved to New York City in 11th grade. I studied with Alvin Ailey. And not with the actual company, but I took on with their summer program and so forth. They were interested in a company position, but I just reached a part of my life where I said, you know, I love dance for what it is. It's great, but this is not it for me. I can go into something else. After that, I founded a company by the name of Altfield. And just so you know, these slides are just going to kind of show about several things that I'm going to talk about tonight. But Altfield, a business partner and I by the name of Corey Brinkman, who is in the audience.
Corey, raise your hand.
Thanks, Corey.
Everybody say hi, Corey.
We came up with the concept to streamline the process of converting a gasoline carbureted utility engine to run on propane. And people would ask why. It was our overall goal to save the customer money from anywhere from 30 to 40% on their annual fuel bill, and be able to clean up the environment by 80 to 90%. So Corey and I developed the company. Proud to say that we grew it to 50 states, 3 international countries. And I remember the 7th day when I was in business in my father's driveway. And I said, Corey, within 5 to 7 years, I'm going to sell out majority of shares of my company. I'm just going to sit on the board. That's where I'm at today. That was in 2015. The CEO of the largest privately owned oil and gas company, and we predominantly focus in propane by the name of Stuart Weedeye, hired me on board, and now I head up a division within that company of small engines. But our focus is different. Corey and I focus more on the smaller utility marketplace, and now I'm focusing more on the larger OEM aspect. So we've been able to merge a lot of our technologies together, and it's been great. It's interesting from going from starting a business as your own and now coming within a well-established family-owned organization of 65 plus years and to be able to grow this division to where it is today. In addition to that, I serve on 2 private companies' boards. Small business just absolutely intrigues me. Many different industries intrigue me. And so I like to think that I bring additional knowledge to the boards, and so I try to serve them in whichever capacity. One in specific is in the software industry, It's located in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I'm in the process of working and helping them assist more capital. One is actually local here in town and just assisting in making them grow overall. But outside of my professional career, the thing that really drives me is this: Alzheimer's, or the Illuminati pin, I call it, that I wear on my suit. My grandfather got diagnosed with Alzheimer's anywhere from 10 to 12 years ago. And I decided after Altfield, or actually towards the end of Altfield, to come in and be a caregiver for him, and full-time live-in caregiver. In those efforts, as I was taking care of my grandfather, I realized that if my grandfather were to walk off, what would happen? Who would go after him? If you call 911, 24, 36 hours before somebody would go out and look for him. So I decided to look for a German Shepherd puppy. After 37 breeders, 6 months, I found my German Shepherd and I trained him how to be a search and rescue dog. And this is my grandfather and I actually doing yard work. But in finding my search and rescue dog, I actually built a custom search and rescue vehicle out in California, flew out, picked up the vehicle, specifically for my canine partner. Unfortunately, as of 3 weeks ago, I lost my canine partner to lymphoma at the age of 4 after 20 plus, emphasis on plus, treatments of chemotherapy.
What was his name?
Duke. My first dog ever. But let's just say that it's interesting. The feelings and emotion. I never thought that I would have such feelings of just emptiness, if you will. But anyway, with that being said, my grandfather continues to suffer from the disease, if you will. And so in the meantime, I've dedicated myself to be an advocate for the disease. And so yes, I do lobby Congress and Senate. I am Vice President of Alzheimer's and Dementia Care Services of Northwest Ohio. I used to be Secretary of the Alzheimer's Northwest Ohio Board, and the association went through this transition in which they wanted to focus more on research, and we wanted to focus more on the care of the individual. And so it's my overall goal to not just focus on the individual with the disease, but to truly take care of the individual that are taking care of them, which is the caregiver. What good is my grandfather if yet I can't support myself or support someone else in the room that might have played that caregiving role? And so anyway, that's our efforts. We just launched last July. We are absolutely ecstatic. Traction is moving well, and we look forward to serving the community, and not just this community, but to even grow regionally and maybe even nationally, and to partner back up with the National Association. But I constantly ask myself, one may say that I'm successful. One may ask, what drives me? But I always ask myself one question. What good is success if I cannot advance my overall species? I can have a Porsche. I can travel the world. But what good is it if I'm unable to advance it? My average week consists of board meetings, doctor's appointments for my grandfather, 3 weeks ago, chemotherapy treatments for my dog, product development, sales team meetings, sales and operation meetings, and I average anywhere from 2 to 4 planes a week, or another way to communicate that is anywhere from 5 to 7 states a week. Monday through Friday, I would say I try to average my schedule between Tuesday and Thursday. But again, through all that, the one thing that drives me is, what good is it if I'm unable to advance for my overall species? And so I reflect on a few words. Life. What is life? What is species? What is success? What is career? People often ask me, Alex, it has to be challenging to take care of your grandfather. And yet I tell people that's the most rewarding thing that I've ever experienced in my life. And the reason being is because it's allowed me an opportunity, and in my role with the Alzheimer's Association, it's allowed me an opportunity to be able to view what it truly means to be a human being. If you've noticed or have ever been aware of someone that has Alzheimer's disease, there's no political correctness. Life is the way that they envision it at that point in time. There's a bluntness. There's a realness there. A realness that sometimes, be the first to tell you, I can't even connect with, right? Because I'm playing Mr. Politician over here or salesman over here. But observing my grandfather in detail has allowed for me to be able to have a unique opportunity to not just be able to share my own story, but has really created that drive and fire and what it really means to advance in life. That irregardless of my career success, irregardless of my location, if I forget at my core what I truly am, what we truly are in this room, what good is it? If you look at society today, look at the way we communicate. Everybody has social media. When's the last time you picked up the phone and had a great conversation with someone? When's the last time you had a great conversation with your colleague? We do all this business. We're so connected. I know. I am connected. But again, what good is it if we just cannot communicate that to one of us, to one and each other? What good is it? And so with all that being said, what truly drives me is knowing that whatever I accomplish in my life, I know that it's for the better and the overall good for mankind. I refuse to accept the notion that we are divided. I refuse to accept the notion that things just have to be this way. I refuse to accept the notion that I'm more successful than anybody in this room. No. I'm not. But what I am is a human being. And everybody in this room is a human being. And so if we forget that piece of it, what good are my accomplishments? What good are your accomplishments? But how I came to that conclusion and still continue to come to that conclusion is by caregiving for my grandfather. Because, again, it's a disease that reverts a human brain back to a child's, but with the experience of an adult. Think about that. And so while I'm speaking, while the stock markets are going up, while I'm looking at the next vehicle I'm going to purchase, what good is it? With that being said, I'm just going to open it up to questions, if anybody has any for me, pertaining to how did I come up with thought fuel? Where am I at currently in my life? Why did I make this or that decision?
I'm going to ask a two-part.
Yep.
Okay. First of all, for the people in the room, how do you juggle it all? Okay. Second part is, in our teaser video, you were hoping somebody would ask you about your college education. So I'm just going to knock that one out now. We'll let Kelly ask it in a minute.
Okay.
So the first part is,
First part, how do I juggle
how do
it?
you juggle it?
Daily routine.
How do you keep your energy up?
Daily routine, every day, 5:30, 6 p.m. Workout, meditate, look at my detailed list for every organization that I'm involved in. I have a task list of what to do. Those are the 3 to 4 things that I do on a consistent basis every single day. Then, as I get to the end of my day, which I find this actually to be more crucial than the start of my day, so I happen to be a crazy morning person that has too much energy. In the evening, I have to reflect on that day, what I've actually accomplished within that day, and how can I make a difference within that week, that month, or that year. And so you hear the word meditate a lot. If I did not meditate personally, and what I mean by meditate, I'm not talking a deep meditation per se, but if I just didn't simply just pause and just think and feel within this moment, right now, nothing else matters to me. I'm only focused right here, today. If I did not do that piece of it, I personally do not feel like I can manage it all. And I just say that to say this. I read a tremendous amount, and you read all this time management and so forth, and do this and do that. But at the end of the day, if I can't focus on the specific tasks that I have, and then know when if I get distracted or that task goes to the left or to the right, to be able to come back to a list and say, wait a minute, this is what I have to do, I can't do it. I simply just can't. And so reflecting on the day, meditating, however you want to label that piece of it, that's an absolutely critical piece. And again, it doesn't have to be 30 minutes each day. It's simply me sometimes on the plane, have my noise canceling headphones, and I just focus on the moment that I'm simply sitting in a chair. People are constantly passing me. The seat is blue. There's a storm outside. The pilot's announcing something. But truly, just live within that moment. And that's a major way to my success or secret sauce. As far as when it comes down to my college education, I've never been to college. I've never been to college. I never saw it as a path for me. I never avoided it. But outside of school, outside of trying to be a professional dancer, if you will, I jumped into the modeling world. And this was right before 2008, took a crash. And I signed with the agency by the name of Public Image, which is the #1 male and female agency. And had my bags packed, and I'm getting ready to go to New York. And I'm just like, something just doesn't feel right about this. Something just does not feel right. Next thing I remember looking at the TV, and the stock market just starts dropping, right? I didn't know much about stocks at that time. But I knew enough to know that majority of your modeling firms are owned by private equity and VCs. And guys, we don't make that much money in modeling compared to women. And so what the VCs did at that time, they just started kicking out every male division. Too much cash in the books, we've got to kick it off. And so from there, I remember I knew Corey through mutual friends 3 or 4 times, and I just had this burning urge, and always have had when I was a kid. I won't say the word entrepreneur, but I'll communicate it in that manner because I think that's what makes sense in today's environment. But I've always just kind of seen things in a very unique, different way. And I remember meeting Corey, and we started talking about politics, and that somehow got into business. And I said, Corey, I have this idea. Let's do a green alternative landscaping company. And Corey said, you're beep nuts. There's no way. I have every allergy to mankind, which the man really does. There's no way. And I said, Corey, no, man, I'm telling you, look, landscaping's a $1 billion industry. Everyone's lawns needs to be cut. But the problem specifically in this part of the country, you get laid off at the factory, everyone becomes a professional landscaper by go getting a case of beer first, And then you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you start mowing on grass, right? So I said, Corey, I don't want to compete in that aspect of it. But I do know that if I can cut down my main cost, which for us is just going to be 2 guys out of a van or out of a truck, it's going to be our fuel and it's going to be our equipment. And so we started looking into every alternative there were. We were looking into batteries. We were looking into solar, everything. And we stumbled upon propane. And we said, you know, what a cool concept. At the time, I was working for a family friend's company that used propane burnishers to polish the floors. So you ever go at nighttime in Walmart or Myers and the guy who walks behind the machine, right? And I said, well, propane go indoors, it's clean enough. It has to be green, right? So at the time we were Googling and we saw a company that had a conversion system. It was like $5,000. And they had their own version of their mower. And we said, that's a horrible idea. Why would we ever do something like that? I would never pay that money. What if I want a Skag, which is a brand of mower? So I'm going to get a little technical or engineering, a Toro, an Exmark, if you will. And so long story short, Corey said, you know, I think we can streamline this process, if you will. And so we did it. And people doubted us like crazy. We loved it. Remember my neighbor came out and saw Corey and I with the little propane cylinder. We had it hooked up, and he's trying to pull it, and I'm trying to prime it. And the neighbor looks at us like, you guys are going to blow yourself up. And she goes in her house, and she's looking out of the glass like this. And I remember walking down the road, and we sold our first system to my neighbor that unfortunately passed away by the name of Theo. And he was a crazy Jamaican individual. And he came out and he says, hey, man, that propane, we use that on our island. I have a horrible Jamaican accent. But anyway, he says, I want to buy one of those. And Corey are like, oh, we're in the big business here. Whoa, right? So we thought that we were going to just package these kits up. And he had a little machining shop in his garage. And we're trying to polish them. And you haven't picked up, I'm the salesman guy, so I'm trying to push it, and Corey's the engineer, if you will. And we thought we were going to sell it on Craigslist and eBay. Business, and blew it up. And that's it. Any other questions?
What's the largest size engine?
So we focused on anything from 1 horsepower to 45 horsepower. And people ask, why a lawnmower? Right? That doesn't sound that large when you compare it to a 4-cylinder engine, a 6-cylinder, an 8-cylinder engine. This is the EPA fact. A 1 horsepower engine operating for 1 hour equates to us driving 15,000 miles in our modern day vehicle. Just think about that. You say, how can that be? It's a little engine. How? Well, if you look at that little engine, it's just gasoline, goes through some pistons, some rings, you have temperature, you have oil, and you have no exhaust. The exhaust is like, the size of my hand, or sometimes they're boxes, sometimes they're a little bit larger on the larger applications. If you look at a vehicle aspect, vehicle has O2 sensors, Cadillac converters, and a long exhaust, right? So when the pollutants, by the time the engine spits it out, it's through that whole entire process. I don't advocate this, but back in the day, they said never shut your garage by any means, right? You'll kill yourself. It's almost getting to the point, by no means will I advocate this, but it's almost getting to the point where it's very challenging to be able to do that, because what's coming out of the tailpipe these days is, and that's all stopped. My lawyers are like, but anyway, that's why we focused on gasoline, small gasoline motors. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
At what point in your life, careers, did you decide to start giving back, and how do you decide what causes you to pick up?
Woo! That's a good one. 2013 is when I really had that realization that partly at the time that I have to give back, irregardless, right? And the causes. Let's take my grandfather out of the equation for a minute, and let's pretend that I have this magical spreadsheet in front of me, And within that spreadsheet, I have all the major diseases, if you will. If I'm just looking at it from a statistical standpoint or a sheer number standpoint, Alzheimer's naturally would stick out to me. Another reason why it would stick out to me is because we're not talking about a physical element. We are, but we're not, right? This is something in our brains, and everyone in this room processes things in a very unique way, right? That's what truly makes us unique. And so that's what's gravitated me towards that cause, because at the time I didn't know much about the disease, but I just knew that if I ever lost, from a personal standpoint, or you ever lost the way to be able to think or process, how detrimental that could be to just our overall society. And so that's the reason why I went into that direction. And so I would say that I look at the causes or try to take on the ones that are the most challenging, the ones that you just can't throw medicine to or there's not solutions for, because to me that's where we need the most innovative minds, if you will. And we need, when I say innovative mind, I'm not talking just in technology, but sometimes you just need the grunt work, which I say on all my boards, I'm more than happy to take the trash out, right? It's not just the hired thinkers, but it's throughout the whole entire organization. And so with that being said, how I do that is just take on the most challenging ones. The one that's on my list next is the youth. And having just having the drive that I've seen in my grandfather or in my parents, if you will, and if you even look at our generation, I just feel as if that we're at a part or a time in our country where when it comes down to our youth, I sometimes feel as if like they're losing hope. And I'm not talking about the guys or the kids just in the inner city. I'm talking about the kids in the inner city and the suburbs, right? Our kids these days are graduating. I say kids as if I'm not old, but our kids are graduating these days with a tremendous amount of debt. There's loss. They're lost. There's no apprenticeship. There's nobody to truly show the ropes. Higher education is very valuable, but at the same time, it teaches you a certain way to be able to operate. And yet, when I look at, I'll just take business for example, from several colleagues that I work with that have been to business school, and what really happens in business is a drastic contrast, if you will. And so you may say, well, then what does that have to do with kids? Well, at the end of the day, I've always said, if we lose hope, if our future, when I look at my cousin, and I don't have any nieces or nephews, but even if I look at my kids, if they lose that hope to be something, or if they don't think that it's actually obtainable, man, that's a scary thought. So that's my next one.
One more question.
Yes.
Shifting gears, since you're involved with Alzheimer's, is there anything new on that horizon that's desired or cure or preventive that you know?
I wish I could tell you that there were, but there's not. Again, it's a very intriguing disease, simply because of the organ that it's attacking, if you will, which is our brain. And so it's not just a one-all cure-all. There's always several drugs in the process of becoming improved, but a lot of times they end up failing. I'm confident that we will be able to come up with a solution, but I personally do not think that there will be a solution based on the information that's been provided to me, and I know within the next, say, 10 to 20 years. But in the meantime, I know that there's so many people suffering. When I say suffering, not the individual with the disease per se, but the individual that's taking care of them. And so to me, we need a combination of both, but we really need to focus on that individual to be able to take care of them. You're welcome. All right, thank you, guys.